everybody, welcome back to Jacey's Creek. My name's Emily, and today we are doing Season 3, Episode 18, Neverlands. So, I just wanted to say that this is probably going to begin with another episode that we are going to love. And last episode, Joey and Pacey kissed for the first time ever. And so now we get this wonderful episode where we get to see the conclusion of that and how everything is going to happen from there. So from here to our last episode, from there to like the last episode of Season 3, we'll see a lot of Pacey and Joey moments that are really going to define their relationship. So if you have not already, make sure to follow my Instagram so that way you can get any updates and just figure out what's going on in my life. So that way we know if there's a podcast episode coming out that weekend or not. I post every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And if you have not already, make sure to follow my TikTok, that's Pacey and Joey. And lastly, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that's Jacey's Creek Podcast. And without further ado, let's get into it. So like I said, this is episode 18. Neverland. It came out on April 5th, 2000. So Wikipedia said. And this is scene 1 of Pacey and Joey. So it previously went back from the last episode where Pacey kissed Joey. We love that scene. We generally adore that scene. Like she gets kissed by Pacey, and then we go from that scene. And so Pacey's on the side of the road kissing Joey. When she stops him, she starts shoving him like as hard as she can. And she's like, "Are you insane? How could you take some simple declarative of friendship as an invitation just mold me, Pacey?" And she's like still pushing him. And she's like, "Answer me. What were you thinking?" And she's like, "What?" And Pacey's like, "What? I don't know. It was an impulse." Which, can we just say, I love the fact that he called it an impulse. Like, that was something that first came into mind. Like, oh yeah, it was an impulse. Like, I don't know why I did it. And Joey says, "An impulse." And Pacey says, "Yes, an impulse. You know, suddenly, momentarily, and believe me, fleeting." And Joey says, "Do you have any idea the monumental impact of this meaningless little impulse? The ripple effect that it could create on a small but fragile universe?" Which means, you know, the impact that you're going to do with Dawson and how everything's going to go down from there. She's not, yeah, she kind of like pushes him and rejects him a little bit, but at the same time, I'm like, Joey, you would have this big reaction because Pacey kisses you. Like, that's your reaction? Like, sister, it's hard to believe, but you're disappointed that Pacey kissed you because, you're over here having this little meltdown, like, and Pacey says, "You're right, Potter. Forgive me for thinking a kiss was just a kiss." And Joey says, into this little hormonal meltdown. And Pacey says, "Meltdown?" And Joey says, "Yeah." And Pacey said, "I just had a meltdown. Forgive me to think that this is the worst tragedy in history of humankind. That Pacey Witter, in a moment of impulse, confusion, hormonal insanity, would have the nerve to kiss Joey Potter. And let me do it. You let me do it." So now I guess the universe begins to unravel. Well, excuse me while I get in the car. And Joey is the right word to say that Joey is pissed. That is the right word, because she is mad. And last time we saw them two kiss, which was Season 1, Episode 10, Joey was not mad. Like, Joey was not this mad. And Pacey even like, "Well, excuse me for thinking a kiss is just a kiss, but you let me do it." And Joey's like, like, maybe I did. Like, that, secretly, that's what I think she's thinking. And Pacey said, like, Joey starts walking away, and Pacey's like, "Would you get in the car, Potter?" And Joey, being like, Joey is my spirit person right here. Because she goes, "No." Me too. to, Joey. And Pacey says, will you get in the car, Potter? No. And then Pacey says, I didn't even mean it, you know? This is me, Pacey. Act first, think later. And now that I'm given the chance to think about it, I take it all back. So get in the car. And Joey says, no. And Pacey says, Joe, it's at least another 6 miles to your house. It's freezing cold outside. And if you don't get in, I'm going to do this whole thing the whole way there. So would you please get in? And Joey sighs, and she gets in. And Pacey says, so I guess I'll take it from your angry silence, so you're not going to speak to me anymore? And Joey says, nope. And Pacey says, great. And how long are you planning on keeping this for? And Joey says, how does indefinitely sound? And Pacey says, fine. And Joey says, fine. And Pacey says, fine. And Joey says, fine. However, I do want to point out with this scene, and it's going to come up a couple of times, Joey let him do this. And whether it was just her thinking about it and wanting to kiss him, but suddenly she was mad at herself because she was like, wait, this could ruin everything that's going on with Dawson and Pacey and everyone else. Like, this could ruin the whole thing. And I think that's when she kind of like snapped and went like, oh crap, what did I just do? So then we get to the next scene. And Joey, this kind of goes back and forth. So Joey is at her house, and Bessie and Joey are talking at the house while Doug and Pacey are at the diner. And the conversation goes on by saying, Bessie, like, they're both talking about what happened. Bessie's talking about what happened, and Doug's talking about what happened. So Bessie says, so you planning on filling me in, or do you just want to die from the Haitian? And Joe says, what? And Bessie says, how is it seeing AJ? And we know someone to detail on Sharon. And Joey says, well, let's see, we broke up, and then Pacey went inside and kissed me. Which I don't even think her and AJ were really together, so I don't think breakup was the right word. And then it cuts to the diner where Doug and Pacey are talking. And Doug said, hey, you kissed her. Good for you. And then it cuts to Joey's house, and Bessie says, oh my God, how could he do this to you? And Joey says, well, technically, I maybe let him do it to me, but I still blame him entirely. Which I'm like, okay, Joey. Last time Joey's reaction to Pacey kissing her, like, she never really told anyone, but now it's kind of like this big drawn-out thing. So we know that something's gonna happen, obviously. So then it cuts back to the diner where Pacey's talking, and it says the whole thing was her fault. I mean, she had to tell me that I was the one she thinks about. You know me, and then she gives me this look. What was I supposed to do? Do you know how long I've been waiting for her to give me that look? Which, if you know that look that girls do, that's the look that Joey gave him, which was true. I mean, it was generally true. And then it cuts to Joey's house, and Joey says, and he gave me this look like, and Bessie's like, I know the look. And then it cuts back to Doug and Pacey, and he says, look, I don't get it. She gave you the look, you kissed her, it was a good kiss, so what's the problem? And Pacey says, well, the hitting, punching, and rejecting. This might be a problem, not to mention, and it cuts to Joey's house, it says Dawson. I mean, if he found out, I don't even want to think about what would happen if he found out. I know one thing, we kissed our friendship goodbye. That is so sad. To think about the fact that, like, if your best friend figured out what happened between you and this other person, and you know it's going to be a bad reaction, that is a huge red flag to me. Like, I'm like, Joey, I feel bad for you. And so then it goes to Pacey, and Pacey says, he never speaks to me again. I can't risk that. He's the brother I never had. And Doug says, so what you're saying is Joey's like a bus. And Pacey says, no, what I'm saying is Joey is like a girl. No. Okay, so one thing I do like is the fact that Pacey says he's like a brother I never had in front of his brother. It always makes me laugh. And Doug says, hear me out. Joey is like a bus that can't go 50. Dawson is like a bomb hidden underneath the bus. And you're the brave, heroic police officer wanting to drive the bus to safety, but can't because of the bomb. Which, That's a weird analogy, but hey, it works. And so then it cuts to Joey's house, and Joey says, do you think it was more than just an impulse? And Pacey says, I don't know. And Joey says, you're such a big help. And Pacey says, I'm sorry about it. Someone who would help me figure it out. And Joey says, who? Dawson? Pacey? Andy? This is supposed to get me to work. And Bessie says, I can't shed a light on for you. I'm sorry. And that cuts to the diner outside, and Doug says, you need to forge ahead. Things can work out between you if you just defuse the bomb. And he goes, Pacey, you need to talk to Dawson about Joey, okay? Now, the trick is to do it in a manner that makes it impossible for him to hate you. Now, what I suggest is you take him to a place that reminds you of the long history you two share, a place where he thinks that you mean really much. Then you tell him. Oh yeah, he'll be upset, but it's also in the first case in which you tell him go ahead, and you and Joey can just drive off into the sunset. And Pacey's like, that's your advice. And Doug says, and what's wrong with my advice? And Pacey says, nothing. Nothing's wrong with that advice. It's just the thought out and undone you like. However, if your ridiculous plans was to work, you be left out with the kinder details. I.e. her hitting, her punching, her yelling. Doug says, oh, grow up, little brother. Do you think she reacted so strongly she didn't feel anything too? And Pacey goes, So one thing, Doug is kind of right about that. Like, he kind of has this reaction where Doug understands it a little bit more than Pacey in a sense, but not really. So Doug has this really good advice for Pacey to just go and tell Dawson at a place that reminds them of their friendship. That is good advice. However, we'll see later about what happens, like Dawson's reaction, everything along those lines, but really, Pacey is going to have to deal with, the inner guilt inside him, but he has nothing to feel guilty of, because he said it in, season 3, episode 9, she's not your girlfriend anymore, so what's the problem? Did you ever think that she'll come near me? Is that what it is? You can slowly see, Pacey knows, Dawson's reaction. And Joey knows Dawson's reaction. But the fact is that Joey goes to Bessie and she starts talking about this kind of stuff, like she did in season 2 with Dawson. And she goes, Pacey went inside and kissed me. However, when you keep going back, she's talking about how the only problem would be Dawson. And she says, if he found out, I don't even want to think about what happened. What thing could happen? I don't know. It's just weird to him, or to her. And the fact that, she can't tell Dawson about this, not because, Dawson's her ex and all this different kind of stuff. I generally don't think that really mattered at this point. I think it was the fact that Pacey and Joey and Dawson have known each other for years, and they're kind of how would Dawson react to this is a whole different thing, because I don't think, Pacey and Joey have hated each other for years, and Dawson has known this. But I think, this is the 3rd time they kissed on the show. The first time was really 2, but I was talking, the first time was, I believe, in episode 2 of season 1, where it was kind of where Joey couldn't kiss Pacey. But then the next kiss was season 1, episode 10. So then, but Dawson's known about all this. But Doug's advice is, you should just tell Dawson so that way it's, out there and you don't have to deal with all this. And you don't have to deal with, if he does find out and you haven't told him, how that would look on him. But really, truthfully, that is good advice for Doug, but I think, Pacey and Joey are nervous because Dawson is kind of, this big connection between them two, and, this big friendship for both of them. And so for Pacey and Joey to kind of have to deal with the fact that they're going to maybe lose Dawson as a friend because of the kiss, and because of something that happened between them two, like, it kind of makes sense. But also, in a sense, I feel like Pacey is also thinking about the last time where he went up to Dawson and told him, hey, I think I like Joey, and I think I want to kiss her, and I think all this kind of stuff. Like, I think in his mind, he was thinking, this man is going to talk me out of it. Like, this teenage boy is going to talk me out of saying it when I really want to kiss Joey, and I really want to be with her. And I think in Doug's head, it kind of made sense. Like, you can just run off in the sunset, and you just have to let go of this bomb. But at the same time, like, it's hard for him, and it's hard for Joey to really set off that bomb and make it go away. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 3 of Pacey and Joey. Well, really scene 1 of Pacey. So this scene goes to the school cafeteria, and Joey is carrying a tray and sees Dawson at the table, and then sees Pacey join him, and she looks around and sees Andy and goes to Andy at another table. And Dawson says, hey man, I can't take a look at this. I can't believe they're doing that. And Pacey says, construction to begin next week on phase 3 of Cape Woods communes. And Dawson says, and Pacey, they're going to buzz all our woods, our fort. That's where all our pre-adolescence male bonding. And Pacey says, yeah, our first friends glances at Playboy. You watching me take my first steps of stolen beer. And Dawson says, should we protest? We should get handcuffs ourselves to the fort or something. And Pacey says, we should protest. Pacey says, you know what we should do? We should go camping. You and I give the old fort our glass hunch. And Dawson says, really? And Pacey says, yeah, this could be our last chance, man. Pacey and Dawson playing homewards at the switchly disappeared childhood. And Dawson says, that's a really good idea. Let's do it. Let's go camping. And Pacey says, great. And Pacey just, kind of looks over at Joey. So I think for this scene, it's kind of really this whole episode between Dawson and Pacey is kind of them two growing out of this childhood friendship. Growing out of what was once to be. So for Dawson and Pacey, they don't really get along after what happens with Joey and Pacey and Dawson figuring out, that's a whole spill right there. They don't like each other afterwards. But I think with this episode, it was kind of you take everything once what the childhood thing was and you build it up, because in Dawson's Creek, the childhood memories are a big part of this show, and I feel like that's kind of how when this tent or this fort is finally kind of going away and doing all this different kind of stuff, it's kind of like their childhood is kind of going away because they have to deal with everything that's going to happen, and I feel like Pacey will know that later. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 1 of Joey, and it cuts to Andy's table where Andy says, you seem a little, weird or something, and Joey says, I'm fine, and Andy says, I'm joking. So how was your weekend? Anything interesting happen? And Joey says, nah. And then Joey asks, so Jen then sits down. And Joey asks what's wrong. And Jen says, well, my boyfriend is ashamed of me and went to Little Liar. But other than that, I'm peachy. And Andy says, sorry, Jen. And Joey says, me too. And Jen says, well, the pathetic track record of my love life, why would I expect any less? And Andy says, friend other girls don't have these problems like we do. And you want to know why? Because they actually hang out together. And Jen says, what do you mean? And Andy says, this is the mood of yours. It's the complete hour's energy boost. Not to mention the fact that there's a mystery black cloud hanging over Joey's head. So I think this calls for a girls' night out. And Joey says, a girls' night out. And Andy says, yeah, okay. Don't you guys think it's abnormal that the two of you never hang out with anyone that doesn't have a penis? You be surprised on how powerful female bonding can be. haven't you seen it through us and Lewis? And Joey says, Andy, they killed someone. And Jen says, and they drove off a cliff. I love that scene so much. And Andy says, yeah, but the point is they did it together, solemnly. I mean, in this cold, cruel world, a girl can rely on one thing, her sisters. I mean, female bonding, and so you do, so what do you say? And Jen says, you know what? I'm in. And Andy says, yay, Jen. And then Joey says, yeah, I'm alright, I'm in. And Andy says, yay, you're not gonna regret it. So one of my favorite parts about this scene, there's two things I really have to say about this scene, is first of all, we never seen Joey have a sleepover, and I think this is character growth, because if someone offered this in season 1, she would look at them and be like, hell no. But now she's like, you know what, I think that's a great idea. And secondly, I think she said yes because she knows that she needs that like girls out moment, because it's not like she said earlier, it's not like she could go to Andy, Pacey, or Dawson for this, because all of that is like, those are like 3 people that she has gotten close with throughout this season and throughout second season and first season. But I mean, when I think about it, she kind of like discluded Jen from it, so really she didn't know how she felt about Jen. But I think in this moment she kind of needed to say yes because she didn't know who to talk to about this. And I don't think it was about her going on this girls' day to make herself like, oh wow, like I don't need to think about Dawson and him figuring out the kiss with Pacey and all this different kind of stuff. I think generally it was her trying to like cope with everything that was happening and just relaxing her mind and getting it away. And I feel like Andy was right, like no, they're always with boys, and so therefore Joey needs some like girl time to kind of like get her mind off of it. And even Andy knew that like Joey was not feeling it at all. She's like, there's a black cloud hanging over Joey's head and something's going on, so we need a girls' night. And I feel like Joey really needed that kind of friendship to really help her go on. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 5 of Pacey. And this is like a hilarious scene between Buzz and Pacey. So Pacey is carrying Buzz on his shoulders, which, love it, love it, love it. And they're walking up to the house, and Pacey puts him on the porch, and Pacey says, gotta say, this was good workout today, Buzz. Couple more weekends like this and we'll be done. Alright, down you go, you little monkey. Alright, slap some skin on that, man. It's a good work. And Buzz says, you can't leave yet. My friends are coming over, and I told them about my semi-cool mentor. And I love how Buzz says that because it just proves how good Pacey is when he works with kids. And Pacey says, look, I wish I could stay, but I already made plans, little buddy. And Buzz says, trying to give me a complex about my height. And Pacey said, look, this will be tons of fun, but I'm already late to meet my buddy, okay? And Buzz says, girlfriend? And Pacey said, no, nosy, I'm going camping with my buddy Dawson. And Buzz says, I'm gonna go camping, why don't you take me camping? And Pacey says, because I can't, this is a no kids trip. It's just me and Dawson, but next time, you and me, camping, I promise. How does that sound? See you on Sunday? And Buzz says, whatever. Bye. And bye, Pacey. And Pacey says, okay, and he leaves, and he's just, you can tell on his face that he kind of feels bad. So then we have the next part of this episode, which is scene 2 of Joey. And they are at Jen's house, and the girls are having their own slumber party. Well, Dawson and Pacey are having like that camp out, and Andy says, I'll go first. Facials and pedicures, what do you think? Great, okay, I'll get the stuff ready. And Jen says, so what's up? And Joey says, nothing, not much. And Jen said, really? Because Joey, if you're going through a particular situation right now and you need someone to talk to, someone to shed light, but yet who's still uninvolved, I just want you to know I'm here. And Joey says, do you have information you'd like to share about a particular situation? And Jen says, you, me, Dawson, Pacey, it's really an little group. Now, I'm standing on the rectangle, but it seems that the whole world balance that's been shifting. And Joey says, you know, what it's like to know is how some meaningless impulse scenario, which was over before it began, somehow became public knowledge. And what makes you think I want to talk about it? And Jen says, Joey, nothing's public knowledge, and I have no idea what particular scenario you're referring to, but it's clear your attitude that it is not meaningless. And I like to say before, if you need someone to talk to figure out things with, I just want to tell you that I'm here. Which I personally really, really like this scene because, I mean, Jen's known this whole time that Pacey liked Joey, and so she, like, obviously kind of knew by Joey's attitude that something was going on with her and Pacey, and I think that was kind of the thing that really got me, because even though Joey didn't really tell Jen what was really happening, she did include with, like, Jen earlier when she was like, who am I going to tell? Andy, Pacey, Dawson? She didn't include Jen. And I think that's really because since season 1, them two haven't really been close friends. And then as we go on and on and on, like, they get closer and they get more compatible with each other. Like, I think they become, like, more as close friends than enemies. So now when we have this slumber party and them two are just, you know, sitting there talking, and Jen's like, you can tell me anything, you know that, right? Like, you don't have to just sit here and wallow over yourself because something's going on. Like, you could come out and just say it. And Joey's like, say what? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Jen, like, completely calls her out on her acting like she doesn't care. Because, truth is, like, Joey does care. And it really, really does show throughout this episode that it wasn't some meaningless impulse. It was the biggest thing that probably will ever happen in her life. From Dawson to Pacey now, like, those two things, like, it's something big. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 3 of Pacey, and they're walking down the sidewalk, and Pacey and Dawson are together with their backpacks and talking, and Pacey said, how the hell did we do this when we were 10? And Dawson says, then we had our backs where a couple of bags of chips and a couple of Capri Suns. And Pacey says, yeah, I guess a lot has changed since then. And Dawson says, yeah, of course. And Pacey says, but change is good. I mean, change it can be good. You know, sometimes even change can seem like it's a bad thing and ending up good. And Dawson says, or Pacey says, there it is, man, our full fort. Fruit of the entire summer labor still standing. And Dawson says, you know, that's just typical. And Pacey says, of what? And Dawson says, of me. Everything, the fence, the fort, the old lady, the dog. I remember all these were bigger than life. In reality, they were just ordinary. Maybe my whole life was just ordinary. And Pacey says, all of this isn't over a fort. We were 9 years old when we built this, Dawson. What did you expect, the taboo man? And Dawson says, of course not. It's just, I don't know, recently I've been connected with who knows the past. When I was passionate and I knew who I was and things were simple, magical, but now I don't know. Maybe I was never that person. Maybe I just thought I was. And Pacey says, you know, it's funny you should put it that way because what it sounds like to me sounds like you're looking for an answer. And so am I, because this morning I was sitting over breakfast with Deputy Doug, of all the people to ask for an answer. But you know, so he tells me I should probably come to you because you're the one who has the answers that I need. And then rustling through the bushes, Dawson said, did you hear that? And Pacey says, no, what? And Buzz and the other boys come riding in the bikes, and they go, yes, we found them. Hey, neat fort. So I think, like, Dawson and Pacey are kind of going through the same thing. Like, Dawson is trying to figure out his past, and now that him and Joey are over it, it's kind of like, what is his past? Like, what's going on? And with Pacey, it's kind of like he's been searching for that answer as well, but with Dawson, it's kind of like a different scenario, because Dawson's always searching for his past, while Pacey's, like, really looking for an answer. And Pacey, like, continues to dig throughout these answers. Like, he doesn't just stop what he's doing and be like, nah, you know what, I'm good. Like, think I'm just gonna stop doing what I think I love. Like, when Pacey figures out that he likes something, like, he doesn't stop, like, completely. Like, he continues going on and doing what he needs to, and I think that's our favorite part about Pacey, is because when we generally think about it, yeah, things are tough with Pacey and Joey at the moment, but it's not like, you know, like, different than Dawson, really, because Dawson had the same experience where he was trying to figure out what him and Joey are, and how him and Joey are, like, all these different kind of things. So when Pacey hears this, it kind of clicks in him, like, this is the perfect moment to say what I need to say. But obviously it wasn't, because Buzz and the boys come. So then we have scene 3 of Joey. So they're at Jen's house, and the slumber party is still going on, and they all have facials, which, have you ever done, like, a facial, and you put it on your face, and it, like, completely, like, messes with your skin? It's, like, one of those, like, $2 facials that you get at, like, Kroger, and you're just like, my face just hurts so bad. I used to do those with one of my old friends. We used to do facials, and my acne would act up so bad afterwards, because it wasn't the right skin thing for me. But what I have done before also is, like, I've done, like, a foot mask. Like, this is not really a facial, but it's just kind of funny to me. And it, like, peels off the dead skins, and it's absolutely amazing, but I always laugh at it. So anyway, they're all doing facials, and Joey says, can we go take them off now? Which felt. And Jen says, ugh, I know, I can barely move my cheeks. And Andy says, still have 2.5 more minutes. And Joey says, this popcorn is good. And Andy says, thanks. Which, I had a popcorn bag at my grandparents, and I, like, stuffed it in a drawer so that way I could throw it away later, and I left it there, and I'm kind of embarrassed because I hope they don't find that out. Anyway, and Andy says, thanks, it was a personality specialty when I was a kid. It reminds me of being a child. Don't you wish you could go back 10 years old again? Everything was so simple and under control. God, I felt so protected. And Joey says, you know what, I know what you mean. I miss the time when I could just climb up trees and roll in the mud and hang out with the boys. It felt like we were the same. None of the stupid man-woman stuff getting in the way. I felt like just being myself. Which I think she really means, like, stupid man stuff with Dawson and Pacey. Like, all these different kind of drama things. Like, nothing's really going on where it can be dramatic, but they know that, like, it's gonna be dramatic. And I wonder if Joey's kind of nervous that Pacey will say anything to Dawson. Like, that's just something that goes always in my head. And Jen says, I never really got to be the little girl. My mom wouldn't let me play in the dirt because it wasn't proper. And she wouldn't let me dress up in her high heels because they were too expensive. I remember, like, going in my mom's high heels, and my mom currently doesn't. Like, I don't see my mom very often, but that's, like, something that goes in my head. Like, when I was little, I used to, like, put her high heels on and put lipstick on and walk down the hallways. Like, that was my favorite thing as a child. And Jen continues by saying, and it was not about to pig out because she was too afraid I'll get fat. And Joey says, all I want to do is eat ice cream, maybe, and pretend to be a kid, and forget about those stupid boys. Me too, Joey, me too. And Jen says, oh, I know, they're twigs. I mean, maybe it's genetic or something, but enough is enough. And Jen says, and they lie. And Joey says, they mess with your heads. And Jen says, and worst of all is how they feel for you, and they won't admit it. You know what? And Joey says, I decided my activity. My favorite place as a kid, the roller rink. And Andy says, roller skating. And Jen says, good. I think that your activity can overlap mine. I hate roller skating. Because I broke my wrist. Because I went roller skating. And that's why I was gone for so long for a little bit. And that's why I'm catching up with the episodes now. Because I broke my wrist in that. Because someone ran into me and I fell down and I tried to catch myself. Never catch yourself when you're roller skating. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 4 of Pacey. And they're in the fort, and Pacey comes out to join the group and is carrying a phone. And Pacey says, alright, I talked to your parents, they said it's okay for you to stay tonight. And the boys go, yay! And Pacey says, yay, I just want you to know, a 10-year-old with a story about a very old man who's rich and decided to have a very unusual type of music part. And Buzz says, with dinosaurs. and it's Jurassic Park, and I've seen it 12 times. Try again. And Dawson says, okay, alright, this is about a boy named Elliot who thought he saw a goblin in his tool and shut back and the boy goes, hello, that was a movie, it's called E.T. And Dawson says, okay, a great white shark? And all of them say, no, which to me, like, Dawson, do you not have any better stories? And the boy number 2 says, why don't you tell us one of your stories? And Dawson says, okay, alright, well, this is a true story. And Pacey said, I shouldn't tell you guys, but you know what? I think you can handle it. Actually, it takes part in this woods that we're sitting in right now. It was an old man who used to live in the fort back, and it used to be his home. His name was Max, was an ordinary enough name. But Max isn't an ordinary guy. Max is evil. No one knows why, but he hates things that are adorable and kind or even happy. And he walks around these woods. He used to be a lumberjack, so he carried this big bloody axe and he stalks and carries bunnies and birds and whatever he comes across, but his main favorite target is 9-year-olds. You okay, Buzz? And Buzz says, just keep going. And Dawson says, one day Max arrived to find 3 little boys sleeping in his house. And that's where that scene ends, but it's kind of funny how Dawson's like a little bit more patient with these kids than he was in season 2. So I do see character growth, but really I love how Pacey's like the bigger person and like calls the parents and lets them know where they are, because I can imagine Pacey doing that. And that is what he did. So then we have scene 4 of Joey, and they're at the roller rink, and Jen, Joey, and Andy are skating around the rink while talking while they're wearing like these fancy scarves and makeup, and Joey's wearing a purple scarf, and I wish Pacey saw her. Like, I generally wish Pacey saw her. And Andy says, you know what? I was thinking about what you guys said earlier, about how guys are twits. And I think you're right, but more than that, because sometimes, you know, when they give you that certain look, you know that look that says you're exactly where they want to be right now, and you feel it for them, and then you melt like this little blob of ice cream, even when you don't want to. Pacey used to do that to me all the time, right before he kissed me, made my knees weak, which is a very good point. Guess who gave Joey the look earlier? The look. You know who gave the look? I've seen the look. Like, I've been that girl who had that look before. Like, they give, like, that sweet, like, their eyes, like, get, like, passionate or something. And I'm like, okay, slow down, buddy. That's how I feel. And Pacey did get that, like, look to Joey earlier. And Joey doesn't say anything, but Jen does. And Jen says, Henry got a look like that. Does it to me every time. And Andy says, who wants to go with Jen? And Jen says, no, I'm gonna take a break. And Joey says, okay. And Andy says, come on, Joey. Okay, let's go. Bye. And Jen says bye. And then everyone's chattering Henry, and Jen sees Henry. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 5 of Pacey. And they're back in the fort, and Pacey is digging near a fire when someone hits with a shovel, and he pulls out a box out of the ground, and Dawson says, hey, check it out, man. And Dawson says, oh my god, I completely forgot about this. Okay, the tickets up when we first saw the time I saw Jurassic Park, and the second and the third. And Pacey says, that's just sad, man. And Pacey said, tell me about it. And Pacey says, hey, check this out. It's Deputy Doug's pocket knife. You know, my dad never found the evidence, but he gave me a spanking for a lifetime. Go ahead. Go figure. And Dawson says, oh my god, look at this. It's a picture of little Joey Potter. Look how beautiful she was, even then. We had no idea. And Pacey says, we must have been deaf, dumb, and blind not to notice. That made me, the first time I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cute that Pacey said that. And Dawson says, what's this? The secret code of Pacey, Witter, and Dawson Leary. Do you remember this? You drew this up that day. And Pacey says, today we became blood brothers. And Dawson says, yeah, the pack of oath of loyalty. And Pacey said, yeah. And Dawson says, God, this was great. I can't believe you found this. It's weird. You put a friendship with a box in someone, bury it, and completely forgot about it. And Pacey says, yeah, which I actually done a box like that where you put it in like a ditch, and I don't know where it went. It was my mom's old box. And another thing that I want to say, I feel like this is kind of like the moment where Dawson and Pacey's friendship kind of ends, in a way. Like, generally speaking, like, the moment their friendship ended, I think, was this episode when they dig the box out and the fort's destroying, like, all those different kind of things that is happening. And I think, like, when you really think about it, like, it isn't about, like, Joey in this moment. I think, like, yeah, them two get along, right? Like, every so often, you have that, like, goofy friend that does things that they're not supposed to, and the good, like, smart friend that does everything they're supposed to. But eventually, like, high school friends, childhood friends aren't always going to be there for you. And when you really think about that, like, yeah, it's scary, but things move on. And when people come out of your life, more people come in. And I feel like when Dawson went out of Joey and Pacey's life later in the season, like, we'll see that. And it's kind of like new people come in and new people, like, go in their life. And I feel like that's a good thing, like a good metaphor, is when this box got digged up and Pacey and Dawson, like, they knew their fort was going to be destroyed. I feel like that was the moment where everything kind of changed. But then we had the next scene, which is scene 6 of Pacey, and they're still at the fort, and Dawson and Pacey are laying next to the fire, and Dawson says, "Pace, you awake?" And Pacey says, "Wide awake, yes. What's up, man?" Which I feel like he's wide awake because he doesn't know how to tell Dawson about Joey. And Dawson says, "It occurred to me what's in my life hasn't was your what time. It's my friendships. You know, I might be unsure of a lot of things, but I'm always going to be sure of you and Joey." And Pacey says, "Me and Joey, huh?" And Dawson says, "Yeah, I mean, you're poor loyalty. Poor loyalty. You're still the guy who drew up the oath who we took when we were kids. Still the guy who did anything for a friend." And Pacey says, "And Joey?" And Dawson says, "Joey, she's my conscience, my soulmate, my inspiration." I'm sure that was really, like, hard to hear that from Dawson. Like, she's my inspiration. Like, you know that girl you like? And he says, "The point is, I'm really glad you have in my life. I won't be lost without you." And Pacey says, "You know, if I'm loyalty, Dawson, it's only because you cast me in that role. You're the storyteller, you know? You see everything and you figure out what it means. Did you see the look on that kid's faces when you were telling them that story that night? How caught up they were? You're the guy who builds this fantasy world. You just tell the rest and you live in it." And Dawson says, "These days it doesn't feel so fantastic." And Pacey says, "It will, bro." So one thing I do have to say about this is, like, I feel like when you think about it, it's like Pacey and Dawson are both kind of, like, dealing with, like, this. But Pacey knows that no matter what, Dawson's going to think about it in his own mind. Like, this is how it went, and this is how it will be, and this is how it will go. But really, like, in a way, that's not how it always goes for them. Like, Pacey knows that no matter what, Pacey will always be that guy, like, the second choice for him, really. That's how he always feels. But really, like, Dawson's, I don't want to say, like, the first choice, but at that moment, he probably feels like the first choice, because here this man is saying, like, she's my conscience, my soulmate, my inspiration. And we know as viewers that's not, like, that's how it is at the moment, but later Pacey is her first choice. Like, that's who she goes to at the very end of this show. So when we think about it, like, everything happens in their show from a point. And so when he knew in the back of his mind, like, yeah, I may be loyal to you, but that's because you cast me in this role. That's because that's who you want me to be. And really, he might feel like he betrayed his best friend because he kissed the ex-girlfriend. But when you think about it, Pacey did nothing wrong. Like, it was not Dawson's girlfriend. Yeah, there's, like, some bro code, which is, like, girl code or whatever. But really, when you think about it, that's just childish. So here Dawson is. Like, yeah, he made a fantastic story and all this different kind of stuff, but he was telling a story about how everything happened when they were kids, and in his head, he thinks oh, like, this story will come out good. And then he'll end up telling a story about Joey. Or he'll end up telling a story about what he figured out when he was a kid. Like, what he made up when he was a kid to Pacey and all this different kind of stuff. And when we get to that part, when we really get to that part, the narrative of this part and the scene is how Pacey always knows that Dawson's gonna make it up in his head. That even though, like, Pacey says, you see everything and figure out what it means. Did you see the looks when he gave that story, how they're caught in it? You are a guy who builds this fantastic world. You just let the rest of us live in it. And I think he knows that because every time he says something about Joey, it never goes according to plan. And I feel like when you really put those into perspective, that's what Pacey really means. And it's kind of sad when you think about it. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 5 with Joey. And they're back at Jen's house, and Andy and Joey are getting ready for bed. And Joey leaves Andy in the bathroom and joins Jen in her room, and they start talking. But Joey keeps making sure that Andy is not coming out, and Joey says, weird night, huh? And Jen says, yeah, I say. And Joey says, I was talking to Pacey the other day, and she told me to tell someone about this, and I can't believe I'm telling you, but Pacey kissed me the other day. And Jen says, yeah, I figured this would come sooner or later. And Joey says, nothing came to a head. I mean, there's nothing. I'm freaked out and angry, and I don't understand why he would do something like this. I mean, it came out of nowhere, and Jen says, well, if it came out of nowhere, then why am I not surprised? You should ask yourself, Joey, if it's really nothing, then why are you so upset and confused? Which, this is what everyone's kind of saying throughout this episode. Like, Joey's like, I'm so hurt and I'm so angry, but really she's hurt and angry for Dawson. Like, she knows that Pacey is Dawson's best friend, and she doesn't want to betray Dawson in some type of sense, because Dawson was always like, well, you're my soulmate, well, you're my inspiration. Like he said earlier, I'm going to quote him. He says, she's my project, my soulmate, my inspiration. Like, okay, like, this dude is really serious about her, and like, her head, like, she's angry because she doesn't know that this is right or wrong. Like, I think the reason why she rejected Pacey so much in season 1 wasn't because she, like, thought he was the most terrible person to kiss. I think she did it because she was into Dawson. And now, like, season 3, like, we have this thing where Joey's like, oh my goodness, like, Pacey kissed me, how could he kiss me? But this is different. This is different than season 1, because now they're friends. Now they told each other so many secrets, and we see Pacey defending her on her side. Like, he's right there. Like, he's attached to her hip because he cares about her, and he generally, like, loves her, and you can see in their faces. Like, it's not one of those things like a crush. Like, he wants to be with her. But then we have Dawson in the middle. It's literally like a triangle. No matter how you put it, like, Joey's on one side, Pacey's on the other, and Dawson's, like, on that very end. And when you put it together, like, they're always going to be circling or going connected to Pacey, Joey, Dawson. Pacey, Joey, Dawson, Joey, Dawson, Pacey. Like, that's how it's always going to be. And so, when you think about it, it's not the fact that Joey's upset or angry or surprised or anything like that. I think it's a fear. Like, a fear that if she kissed him back, if she continued to be like, oh yeah, like, this is perfectly okay, how is Dawson going to react to all this? If they started dating, how would Dawson react to this? Because she wants to be with Pacey, and it's pretty obvious, but in her head, she's like, do I really want to be with him? And Bessie said this, Doug said this, Pacey probably said this, Jen said this, like, and Joey's kind of saying it to herself, like, and Andy even is like, Pacey gave me that look whenever he wanted to kiss me, and Joey's like, wow, like, maybe he did want to kiss me, like, maybe it wasn't some type of meltdown, like, he generally cared about me, and he wants to he wants to be with me. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 7 of Pacey, and they're at the fort, and Pacey and Dawson are getting the boys ready, and Pacey says, I'll talk to you later, huh? And Dawson says, alright, see you. And Pacey said, let's go, Buzz. Let's go, guys. And Buzz says, bye, Dawson. Watch out for Mac and his bloody axe. And Dawson says, see you guys. So I think this scene is important because it just shows that Pacey never told Dawson. And I think it was out of fear because he was afraid that, like, if Dawson realized the most important part was Joey, and Pacey, like, Joey is kind of there. Like, no matter what Joey does, and we'll see this constantly in the show, Joey can mess up a ton of times, and Dawson will automatically forgive her like that, because that's just how the storyline goes. But with Pacey, I think that he thinks that he's disposable, and Dawson kind of thinks that too. So when you really put it in that perspective, I think that's why Dawson and Pacey never talked about Joey, like, and everything that's happening with Pacey. Like, he didn't want to kind of ruin that moment. So then we have scene 3 of Pacey and Joey, and they're at the local gas station / store, and Buzz and Pacey are walking through it, and Buzz says, I'm gonna get 12 pixie sticks and 5 candy bars. And Pacey says, how about an orange soda and a box of pretzels? And Buzz says, 1 pixie stick, 1 candy bar, and an orange soda. And they turn the corner and run into Joey, and Pacey's like, hi. Or Pacey said, hey, and Joey says, hey. And I love Buzz's reaction, because he goes, hey. And Joey just stares at him like, what the heck? And Buzz says, just a second. And he turns to Buzz and says, listen, if you give us 2 minutes, I'll give you 10 sodas and a box of sugar. What do you say? And Buzz says, done. And Pacey says, there you go. And he hands him some money. And Pacey says, hey. And Joey says, hey again. About the other night. And Pacey says, so I guess And Joey says, you first. And Pacey says, well, I just wanted to say that, I'm sorry. You know, all that stuff about the disaster and Dawson and the ripple effect in the universe, it was alright. I mean, what I did, it was completely monumentally stupid. I don't know what I was thinking, so I just wanted to know it was an impulse, plain and simple. One that left my body permanently, I promise. And Joey says, it's okay, Pacey. I mean, I totally overreacted. I mean, if something isn't a big deal unless you let it be, and it, wasn't a big deal. I get so upset. I mean, obviously it meant nothing, right? Which, I feel like Joey, when Pacey was saying all this, like, she looked generally disappointed, and I feel like she wanted Pacey to, like, say, like, hey, like, it's okay, like, I meant to kiss you. But really, like, when Pacey saw Dawson, he realized how stupid he would be if he went after her. And Pacey says, right, because I did a mistake, right? And Joey says, right. And Pacey says, well, I guess that puts us back to being just friends. And Joey says, definitely. And Pacey says, great, we should probably get going. Once that boy gets all the sugar, he's a terror. Oh, by the way, in this part, they shake hands. And when she says definitely, and it's kind of funny to me. Like, it's like, it looks so awkward. Like, there was obviously, like, some chemistry going on. And Pacey continues by saying, watch all the sugar, he's a terror, I'll probably have to chase him back home. It's 2 miles, not pretty. Joey says, well, I guess I'll see you later, Pacey. And Pacey says, yeah, I'll see you later. And so then we see outside where Pacey and Buzz are walking together, and Pacey says, you grab the front, I'll grab the back. 1, 2, 3, grab, and he says, there you go. And Buzz says, is that her? And Pacey says, who? And Buzz says, the girl. And Pacey says, what girl? And Buzz says, the girl you wanted to kiss, stupid. The one you're in love with. And Pacey says, nope. And Buzz says, yeah, it was. And Pacey says, please, what do you know? And Buzz says, it was her, it was her, it was her. And Pacey says, get a wife of yours, huh? And Buzz says, huh, I was right. Pacey said, right? You don't even know what right is. Please get out of here. And Joey comes out of the store and watches her with, like, Pacey walk with Buzz. And truthfully, I feel like smiles at Pacey. And Pacey and Dawson are two different people. So when she's walking, and she goes over there, and whether she heard Pacey or not, I don't think she did, and she sees Pacey and Buzz walking down that grass with their bikes. Like, I feel like it's different, because in season 2, we see Dawson yelling at a kid, and Joey comes out. But then at this moment, we see Pacey, like, literally just helping this kid out, being a good mentor, being there for him. And yeah, like, Dawson was good earlier with the kids, but it was really different with Pacey, because he is really good, and he gets, like, bashed throughout several times, like, oh, you're not a good person, like, oh, da. But Pacey is so different in season 2 than season 1, or season 3 than season 1 and season 2. And I think that this kind of proves it for Joey. Like, I think this was the moment that she really had to think about Pacey and what she wanted. And she smiled at Pacey and Buzz, but yeah, they're friends, and yeah, they agreed on it. But truthfully being told, I think she was waiting for Pacey to say it was a mistake. And I think Pacey was waiting for Joey to say she felt it too. And we'll see that next episode with Stolen Kisses. So, if you like this episode, please make sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel. That's Jacey's Creek Podcast, where I post every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's also other platforms that you can listen to, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure to review this podcast with kind words, please, only. Make sure you comment, subscribe, share, whatever you need to do. And also, you can catch every episode again on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I would love to hear your thoughts on Instagram. That's Witter and Potter. And my TikTok is Pacey and Joey. I hope to see you guys again at Friday and Saturday and Sunday. I love hearing your guys' thoughts, so please make sure to comment down below. Bye, guys.